an all-time player who I think it gets a couple moments of his career have been forgotten to history by many people that even consider themselves NBA fans.
Number 37, Clyde Drexler.
So he's one-time first-team All-NBA, two-time second-team All-NBA, two-time third-team All-NBA. He almost won MVP in 1992, but Michael Jordan did that year. He also almost won the title, but Michael Jordan did. More on that in a moment. He has one other top 5 MVP finish. Where I say people forget things about Clyde, people remember him losing to Jordan in the finals, and they remember, he was on one of those Rockets champions. Okay. What I don't know if they remember is before he lost to Jordan in the finals, he led the Portland Trail Blazers to the 1990 NBA Finals, where they lost to Detroit, the Bad Boy Pistons, who could have won 3 titles in a row. It lost to Isaiah Thomas, no shame in that. So 1990, Clyde's the best player on a finalist. 1992, Clyde is the best player on a finalist. And let's talk about how he did in those finals. In the finals loss to Detroit, a Detroit team that up to that point in time had truly bedeviled Michael Jordan. Clyde averaged for those finals 26, 8, and 6. So yeah, Detroit won in 5, but it was not because Clyde didn't do his thing. 26, 8, and 6 against the Bad Boy Pistons in the finals in 1990. Then 2 years later, against Chicago and Michael Jordan, the defending champion Chicago Bulls. What does Clyde do in those finals? 25, 8, and 5 in those finals to Chicago, and that postseason, he was 26, 7, and 7. Now, as you'll see throughout this series, sometimes for postseason accomplishments, I talk about individual monster games. Clyde didn't have a ton of monster games in the postseason. He only had a handful of 40-point games. He was just incredibly consistent. He had so few stinkers, if you will, that despite not having a bunch of the 38, 42, 44-point explosions, he still had a career playoff averages of 27 and 6, which were all slightly better than his career regular season averages. So he's a guy who was actually better in the postseason than he was in the regular season. As you saw earlier in the regular season, he was an MVP candidate, a legitimate MVP candidate for a few years. But I'm still leaving out one finals appearance. And before I talk about that finals appearance, let me bring in our friend Rick Bucher, who wants to ask about Clyde Drexler.
Phenomenal athlete, Clyde, on the level of Jordan, but game fundamentally was not as refined. I just wonder, Nick, if you would look at him the same way if he hadn't gone to Houston and won a championship with Hakeem, because that was a matter of being in the right place at the right time and had more to do with Hakeem's ascension than Clyde's.
Okay, so this is where, with respect to Rick, he's just wrong. And it was, so in those finals, that if we're talking about the finals that he won against Shaq and the young Orlando Magic, the what could have been Orlando Magic, in those finals, Clyde averaged 22, 10, and 7. He was the clear-cut second best player for the Rockets. But that undersells how important he was. It's not just that they were the 6th seed, in large part because they didn't get Clyde until later in the year, and they went all the way to winning the title. But if you remember, that Rockets team they faced elimination a number of times throughout the postseason and then came through. So how did they come through? I mentioned before, Clyde didn't have a bunch of monster playoff moments. Maybe his best playoff game ever, one could argue, 41, 9, and 6, facing elimination in round 1 against Utah to keep the season alive. So game 5, must win, facing elimination in Utah, 31 and 10 in 47 minutes in a 4-point victory. The very next round, Houston falls down 3-1 to Phoenix and Barkley. What does Clyde do there? Game 7 of that series, 29 and 8 in 41 minutes in a 1-point victory. So the idea that Clyde was just right place, right time, it's not true. And then in the finals, I told you, he was 22, 10, and 7. So he was incredibly important. So yeah, he wasn't Rick said he wasn't Michael Jordan. Yeah, I know. Michael Jordan, I know this is going to shock you. Michael Jordan's going to show up in the top 3 on this thing. Now, where is he going to be in the top 3? Who knows? But he's going to show up in the top 3. I got Clyde. Where do I have Clyde? At 37? So, yeah, there's a gap there. But the idea that Clyde was just right place, right time, if he's not on that Rockets team, they don't win the title. He absolutely deserves credit for it. And one other thing to my friend Rick Bucher, because Rick is contributing questions, and DeMonte's contributing questions. Of course, also Chris Broussard's contributing questions. In a clip we didn't end up using, that was about a different player, Brew went on a little tangent about that player's ranking in comparison to Clyde The Glide Drexler. I echo everything you're about to hear from Chris Broussard. So in other words, Rick, it's 2-1, Nick and Broussard against you. So we're right, you're wrong. Here's Brew on Clyde before we move on.
Clyde led the Blazers without a perennial all-star teammate to 3 straight trips to the Western Conference Finals and 2 appearances in the NBA Finals. Lost to the great Isaiah Thomas and, of course, Michael Jordan. Then goes and teams with Elijah Wan, fits in, plays well, is an all-star, 20 points a game, and a ring. Clyde don't get enough love, my man, including on your list.
Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to get more from the show, and make sure to click the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just click the link in the description below.